Option for possible action. Commission Regulation 13-03, big game application eligibility and deadline information. Program Officer 3, Maureen Hullinger.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Maureen Hullinger, Nevada Department of Wildlife License Office. I'm here to present CR 1303, which is the big game Silver State and black bear tag draw eligibility, deadline, and remaining tag information. We usually present this annually. I was here presenting it in December for doing an online only, and that was declined, so I'm back in front of you this month to present it for paper and online applications like we've done in the past. The only change historically from our traditional methods is to request that on the online applications we go to 11 p.m. for the deadline. And other than that, I turn it over to you for discussion or questions.
Any questions of Maureen? Mr. Drew?
Maureen, after general application information, it says that Silver State applications and black bear tag applications can only be submitted online through the internet.
It's been that way since inception.
Was the bear one because of the timing of the initial hunt? And is there a reason we couldn't add that to a paper application?
When we brought the bear hunt on, I proposed to do it online only, and it's been since the inception as online only.
Any other? Commissioner Rain?
Just a question here. I'm sure it's probably covered somewhere else, but I believe that here you have stated, let's see, the person may not obtain more than one deer tag during a hunting season with these couple exceptions. Isn't one of those exceptions the heritage, also the heritage tag, and now the dream tag is an exception to that rule? And the same with the antelope and elk. Aren't those additional exceptions?
You know, historically, I've never even tied those to this process because they're outside of the draw.
Yeah, but they're tags.
So that's a good question. I don't restrict them. They can purchase the heritage. They're not ineligible for the draw if they have that tag. So yeah, they are exceptions. We've never actually had the question come up before.
It's the ones I try to come up with. Sometimes it takes me a couple of years to think of that one. Well, the dream tag's new. So perhaps it would be appropriate to include those as exceptions in this document for the point, you know, for the purpose of clarification.
NAC for the dream tag, you know, they have to choose between the dream tag and their draw tag. They have to turn their draw tag in, and it is a separate draw. So I think it's covered. They can't have both. They have to choose.
For which one?
For dream tag.
Oh, for the dream tag, they got to turn it in.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so I believe it's covered by NAC in that regard.
Okay. But the other one?
And heritage isn't a draw process at all. It's outside of that. But if you wanted to include it here, I don't think it's no harm, no foul.
It's one of those things, you know, I always see lots of interesting questions coming up. Well, right there it says you can't have more than, it's not listed, so it'd probably be appropriate, I would think. Other than that, I didn't see anything in this section.
Any other commission questions? Commissioner Drew?
And this might be Ken for you or one of the Tony or Mike, but I know we're looking at a lot more depredation type hunts for cow elk. Do we have any fear that we may not have enough applicants for those? And the reason I'm asking that is we have a provision here under the deer section about a person may not obtain more than one deer tag during a hunt season except for depredation, emergency depredation, and landowner tags. Does it make any sense to maybe start thinking about adding that to the elk section, or can we do that? Is there an NRS that prevents us from doing that? In other words, are we going to run into a shortage on elk applicants for some of those depredation hunts? And if so, does it make sense to make an exception that someone could draw 2 tags if one of them is a depredation?
What's the language state right now?
Let's see.
I think it's the third.
A person may not obtain more than one antelope or elk tag during a hunting season except for antelope damage compensation and elk incentive hunt tags.
Yeah, we have a situation where
You're talking emergency depredation? No, we've never had a problem
haven't run
finding
into that.
unsuccessful. And you've got to understand also too, our alternate process is going to change this year. They're going to be opting for the alternate electronically. You know, in December, you approved that. So I don't know if you want that as a fallback, but if they're an alternate, it would add to the programming to make sure that we don't exclude them from it if they've got a tagged. So,
Two things. One, we're looking at the tag applicants in 2012 for our main cow elk rifle season, the 4181. We had basically 6,000 applicants, and we had 3,300 tags. So we're pretty good there, but what's going to probably happen as many of our female hunts, people are waiting for that male tag to hopefully hit the mail or hit the their internet check, and when they don't, then they start seeking out the female hunts, the cow hunts, the doe hunts. So even though we do have a pretty good sizable cow elk pool, there could be, somebody who put in for a bull. There's a leftover depredation tag. Maybe he drew the bull, and is there anything wrong with him getting a depredation cow tag? I mean, that's for your consideration. And really the same way with, so that would be consistent with the mule deer, for sure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll take it out to general public. Anybody have any questions? All right, we'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Rain?
I don't see too much problem with the elk leaving it as it is, because if a problem does occur, and the only times I remember there being much in the way of tags left over, significant numbers, it would spend like a 1-year hump, and then, oh, look, there's a bunch of them, and the next year it just cures itself because people start looking at it. And with this change in our process, it's kind of, it's hard to predict how it's going to go, but the way it is right now, I don't think it's a problem. There's a lot of people out there that apply for all these. More than one elk is a lot of meat in the freezer. One's usually sufficient for most people, so I think it's reasonable to leave that as it is. The only thing therefore I'd like to make a motion to approve this regulation as written, with the exception of adding the heritage tag as an exception under the except for on both the antelope elk categories and the deer categories. And also, I guess, the other category with all the mountain goats and stuff as well.
We have a motion. Does everybody understand the motion?
No, I don't understand.
Could,
Scott,
excuse
can you
me,
explain that a
Mr.
little
Chairman?
better?
Mr. Chairman, could I have that repeated again, please?
Okay, move to approve as written, adding when it says except for, and we're in the different sections here, and there's a couple different sections where it says except for example, under deer, except for depredation, emergency depredation, and deer landowner damage compensation, add in there the heritage tags as an exception, simply to clarify that for those people.
Does everybody understand?
Yeah,
Well, what
that's
about
it.
Silver
Good.
State and Dream Tag?
She said that was covered.
Just for the sake of discussion, I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Now, let's get the discussion and try to figure out if we need to amend the motion or get some more clarification.
She said those two are covered, I believe, with Dream Tag and Silver State.
So what has those covered, but why isn't Heritage also covered? Don't we indicate that Heritage is a separate process?
with heritage, it's actually always been a separate regulation and policy unto itself, so we've never really spoken about it with this process before. And like I said earlier, I don't really believe there's any harm in adding it here. It just adds clarification. Because there is no NAC on heritage. It's in policy or statute in regards to what you're doing. With Dream Tag, we have NAC, excuse me, in that if they are the one to be selected for Dream Tag, if they have a draw tag, they have to opt which one they want. They have to make a selection, turn in their draw tag to keep the Dream Tag, or not take the Dream Tag and keep their draw tag. So I think you're okay there. And then on the Silver State, it's how you apply, it's the first draw up. So if you draw that, then everything else is ineligible. So it's covered in just how the draw process occurs for Silver State.
So essentially what this clarification does, if someone buys a heritage mule deer tag, they can also draw in the normal draw a mule deer tag.
Correct. Yeah. It just adds clarity. We've never made someone ineligible,
Okay,
So can we go through this and find the areas and add in whatever language you want to do then, and maybe amend the motion to add, kind of clarify that so we know exactly.
Okay,
Is that the third paragraph is the first one?
let's see, it would be the third and the fourth paragraph there. The one that with the first one would have, and they would have may not obtain, a person may not obtain more than one antelope or elk. And then at the end of that, add, let's see, it says except for antelope landowner damage compensation tags, comma, heritage tags, and then continue and elk incentive tags. And I'd basically do the same thing for the following paragraph in reference to mule deer. And
I would just, since antelope damage compensation tag, antelope deer, well, in this case antelope and elk are similar, why don't you do except for heritage tags, comma, do it right after.
sure. Except for heritage tags, comma, in both instances. Perfect. Might be simpler. Now, Maureen, there's no other places where it states it in here, is there? I
No,
didn't
it's right,
see it.
that's it.
Okay. So just those two instances, which would be the third and fourth paragraphs.
Okay, any other comments? Do we need to restate the motion? Because, everybody clear on where we're going?
Or accept that as an amendment?
Accept that as the amendment, if seconder.
The second is fine with that amendment.
All right, so we're good with everybody's good? Okay. Any public comment? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.